In this section, I'm going to introduce you to some basic lighting concepts. And when we work on effects, um, oftentimes we're not, especially in a large studio, we're not responsible for the final shading and lighting of everything, but we want to present our work so that it looks nice. And so here's some examples of some basic kind of lighting techniques that are commonly used by studio photographers. And so I learned this kind of growing up. My parents had a photo studio. My father had a photo studio, and my mom worked in a scientific lab, photography lab. So and my mom took like wedding photographs and event photographs on the side. And so I kind of grew up with that, with this camera slung around my neck, whether I liked it or not. And um, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about lighting, developing film, darkroom techniques, things like that, all while I was in junior high and high school, I guess, maybe even younger. And then I studied photography on my own a bit. I got interested in it, and so here's some really basic lighting photography things, and I'm going to show it to you in two ways. One is um, it's all going to be through Houdini, and the lighting is going to be done uh, with the light intensity having no fall off. So the light's going to go on for like ever and ever and ever and ever. And the other one is going to be where there's a natural light fall off. And so I'm working to scale. This person is about 1.6 meters or 1.6 meters tall, maybe a little bit taller. His eyes might be set at that. And kind of like an average height uh, guy, and maybe taller than me. And and so this has the light falling off with no fall off actually. So and but it's set to scale, and I position the lights kind of correctly as they are in a set. So this is a camera setting in a studio like my father would have, where the lights would all fit inside that space in a room, in a somewhat large, not gigantic room, but in a room, and the lights would fit under the ceiling and in relation to the camera. And so here's like a kind of the in his studio, this is probably the furthest you could get away from a portrait. And the next frame is a close up. The next frame, it's kind of a make believe camera because it's taller than the ceiling. And it shows the three different lights that I'm using. And here's another one showing the three different lights. And then here's one from the side showing the three different lights. And I think I might have a slight environment light that's a very, very low intensity that would kind of represent the bounce lights off the other walls in the ceiling. So to get a little, very slight bounce light. And so these lights are, this is good to write down in your notebook. The light that's, well, let's look at it from the top. Okay, so the camera is right about here. And um, the lights would be positioned in a studio, sometimes just outside of the camera view, depends on what you're shooting and how far you are away. And so um, if you want to try to create realistic lighting, you have to make lights that fit in the environment. Like it would be possible to have a light that's in front of the camera, or seeing through part of the camera, but then you're not going to get the kind of room environment light. And so I do have my lights casting a shadow, and so I built like a light box around it. And so these are kind of like light box. Um, in reality, the light would be, there might be a light shining at this panel, and then that panel's bouncing back the light. So the light would shine toward the panel, in the middle of the panel, toward the panel, and then that light bounces back away. And so then you get a little bit softer light. You don't get a hard edge light. And these lights are purposefully not huge, gigantic. So there's something. These are almost like the size of the lights that an amateur could afford. Um, and And so in the Houdini file, let's take a look at Houdini file. So I'm going to pull back, and I got, well, my back wall set is way larger than my dad's studio. So, but these would all fit within a modestly sized studio room, and maybe a small group portrait. You could maybe get 10 people, 2 rows, like 4 and 9 or something like that. Nine, 4 and 5 rows, something like that. People sitting in a room. So I got this set up here. Now, the light that's on the top left is called a key light, and in this kind of lighting, so this is kind of standard studio light. Let me go to the portrait. The key light is the brightest, and it's off to the top left, down on it. And then there's a fill light that's this one here, and that's just a little bit lower. Part of it is lower than the face, and sometimes it might be larger than that or go down a little bit more, but it's filling in the shadow area. And then the back light is called a rim light, or it's like a head and shoulders light. And so the rim light is going to give you this back edge here where the shoulders are a little bit bright and the top of the hair. So now this isn't really shiny hair, but you would see maybe a little bit of glinter in the hair, a little bit of halo around his head, a little bit. So that's coming from this light in the back. So rim light, top, back, key light from the photographer's point of view, the left, top left, and then from the fill light, medium right. And so we see those lights. And so I'm going to show some variations on this lighting. It'll help show the just how powerful these 3 lights can be. So I'll resume in the next video. So this is the uh, first video file, and also the A video file, and also the A Houdini file.